Okay, today's topic is the Wii U. Why it was the greatest Nintendo system. Wait, what?
No, I think that's a fact. I read it on Wikipedia somewhere.
Yeah, so the Wii U has had a rough life, and we're going to talk about it a little bit here. I think we'll talk about its greatest failing right off the bat, and it was the marketing. I think a lot of people were confused that this was just an addition to the original Wii, and not one that was priced enough for people to buy.
Yeah, well, I think this marked like the first time. I could be wrong, but historically, hadn't every Nintendo home console come in at $299 or under at launch? And the Wii U, the deluxe model, was the first time that they'd actually crossed the 300 mark and gotten at the 350 price range.
Yep.
I mean, I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that had been their entry level for home consoles up until that point.
And when a good chunk of your customers think it's just an add-on to what they already have, like that sounds extremely exorbitant.
Absolutely.
As long as you don't keep PSVR in your head, because that's probably even higher now. But
well, the thing is like they really felt like they were on something with onto something with that Wii U brand or the Wii branding, and the Wii, despite how people choose to remember it, the numbers are that it crushed the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in that console generation, selling over 100 million units. Just an overwhelming, unfounded, sort of lucky, in my opinion, success.
It might be the last one that sells 100 million, to be honest.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of that initial success happened with the casual gaming market and the success of Wii Sports and the advertising campaign behind that. I don't have the date in front of me, but I think the Wii launched in 2006. Isn't that right?
That sounds right.
Yeah, and I feel like the big success and the buzz happened within that first 3 years. And by about 2010, for most of the gaming market and the market in general, that system was dead. There weren't great first-party titles coming out. So there had kind of been this huge success of the Wii up front. It was selling and continued to sell through the next few years past 2010, but it was mostly just that garbage that got churned out, the shovelware that the Wii is so famous for. So by the time you're getting to the launch of the Wii U, which happened in 2012, I think November of 2012, I think even for hardcore gamers, the Wii had sort of been forgotten for at least 2 to 3 years. And it was sort of strange that they relied so heavily on that Wii name with the Wii U and kind of like attached to that. It was definitely a poor choice, as we saw.
Yeah, I mean, and the important thing that you were saying where, kind of dropped off on 2010, I mean, kind of after Super Mario Galaxy 2, I would say Nintendo kind of dropped everything that they were doing on the Wii.
Yep.
And moved over to the Wii U. So it was a good solid couple years without really any big Nintendo games on the Wii. And when the Wii U launched, I think they had Nintendo Land and New Super Mario Brothers U, which are fine, I guess, but they're not what Zelda did to the Switch here now,
Absolutely. Well,
they're not going to sell.
So I'm what's interesting is you're right, there wasn't much on the launch for the Wii U in the way of Nintendo, but it had a very large launch lineup. Mostly though, Ubisoft games or third-party games that were about a year old on other consoles, which would have been the PS3 and the Xbox 360. So I mean, you had Assassin's Creed and Batman: Arkham Origin, Call of Duty Black Ops 2, Darksiders 2. You've got your Maddens, your NBA 2K, Ninja Gaiden 3. I mean, all these games. But yeah, in the way of must-have games from Nintendo, it just was not there at launch.
Yep. And speaking of that, going that third-party route, keeping that Wii branding, I think of Wii as casual games, Wii Sports. And this was a total pivot to try to get the hardcore gamers. I mean, even Nintendo Land, you can't sit your grandma down and say, okay, let's play Chase Mario, because, you know, you got to use sticks and every button on that controller to play that game. And that's not the ease of use of what the Wii was kind of known for.
Yeah, and I think like in, you know, Nintendo Land's a weird example too, because it used so many of like the actual Wii emotes from the original Wii. I really think that Nintendo believed that because everyone already had a Wii, the fact that this was going to be backwards compatible with all those original Wii emotes was just going to be like this huge multiplayer sensation. Everybody's already got it. Everybody can use it. But it just further confused that brand for the Wii U and made it almost indistinguishable from its predecessor with the casual gaming market.
Yep. And speaking of Nintendo Land, like, there's like 3 or 4 games in that where, you know, one person is the gamepad and everybody else is kind of versus them with Wii remotes, you know? And those games are definitely a lot of fun in there. And you play those games and like, okay, this is what the Wii U brings to the table. And then they never did that again.
Yeah, that was the last time you ever saw it.
Yeah.
Really the only other experience I've had that I truly felt made a good use case for the Wii U gamepad was Zombie U, which I know gets a lot of flack. People are like, well, that was garbage, but, you know, actually it was a pretty intriguing game. But yeah, outside of that, Nintendo Land, it was like the Wii U gamepad was just a prototype controller almost. That even if you, as your hardware developer, as a Nintendo, if you're not utilizing that, other than off-screen play after your initial 3 months of a console being out, I mean, who else is going to support that?
Right. Something went wrong there then, you know, like something in the process of development that you weren't be able to make more games like that. Because like Zombie U was also a launch game as well, you know?
Yep.
So after that, even toward the end there, like they were not even trying to do anything.
Yeah. Well, and they didn't, you know, in marketing and initial lead up to launch, they didn't explain well, like, the benefits of what the gamepad was supposed to be able to do, and I don't know. I mean, they tried, but they didn't. I mean, I think it basically turned into this device that you could use to play your console on another screen if your TV was being occupied, but even then it was a complete failure because depending on how your house is set up, you're getting, like, what? They said 30 feet. Like, I think that's bullshit. If I can get 15 feet away from my Wii U and still have the gamepad connected, that's a good day.
Yep. Yeah, I wonder how often that off the screen thing really took off anyway. It's a nice feature to put into an ad, but when it really comes down to it, how often did people use it, you know?
Yeah. Well, and myself personally, like, I tried to use it quite a bit. Like, I got the Wii U right when we had our first child, and, you know, you'd be in the nursery or in another room, and I was like, well, this would be great. I'll sit up there, put it on mute, and play a game while I'm, you know, rocking my daughter to sleep. And, you know, it never happened because I could not leave the direct vicinity of my system to even utilize it. So it was just an interesting idea gone wrong.
Yep.
Like, with the Wii U in general, I guess it's an interesting idea gone wrong.
Yeah, very much so.
Topic over. Done. Mic drop.
Yep.
And speaking of mic drop, actually, this is a good segue, not that it's in the right place, but with the launch of the Wii U again, Nintendo stuck to their guns, saying they didn't see the demand for an online gaming system or online gameplay or voice chat or a centralized system. And that was a huge nail in the coffin for them with this system. We'd had PlayStation Network. We'd had Xbox Live. The majority of the games that were, you know, third-party developed relied on this stuff, and they didn't have that in the Wii U at launch. I mean, there was some games that utilized voice chat, but it was immediately bogged down by the friend code. And I mean, we got one Turtle Beach like headset that came out for the thing at launch, and it was just the cheapest version you could possibly get. It did work, but I mean, that was it.
Yep. I mean, I will give it the Miiverse is a really cool idea that they've since killed for.
Yeah, I was gonna say they just murdered it, didn't they?
Yeah. I like the Miiverse quite a bit. There was a couple good ones at the very beginning. If you went into some of the Barbie ones, play hubs of there was some great comedy material in there.
Spent a lot of time in the Barbie Miiverse, did you?
Oh yeah, every night you had to check it. I mean, there was seriously some good comedy in there. Not something I would want my daughter to just hop on there and say, "What's?" I want to chat with other Barbie like-minded individuals. It was not that.
I sort of just like use the Miiverse to like draw like people pooping on things and stuff, and like upload to Miiverse when I play a game.
Yep.
I pretty much took it down to like 6th grade level immediately, and I never left.
Yeah, that's probably kind of funny. I'd like to see. It was probably most of the kids that drew stuff to act like adults, and then the adults were drawing things that looked like they were acting like kids.
Well, there's no way to track it back to you because you're not a real person. You're just a friend code. So You're completely safe in Nintendo's Miiverse.
Yeah.
I wonder how many people use Nintendo consoles used inappropriately. Like, didn't they have like a video chat feature for a while? Like, do you suppose that ever got used as like some sort of like weird solicitation like ring?
Oh boy.
Like somebody out there had to be doing it, right?
Yeah, that sounds like a bad idea.
It does, but I have to believe that someone did this.
Obviously, they didn't take the warnings of Uno seriously. The controller, what do you guys think about that? Like, now I loved it when it first came out. I thought it was a kind of a cool piece of tech. But when you put a Switch in your hands compared to this thing now, like this, it's like a kid's toy.
Yeah, I will say, like, as big as and bulky as it was very light and very comfortable in your hand. I never did get used to the 2 sticks on top. I always thought that was awkward, being like a big Xbox 360 person at the time. But, yeah, it was good.
I think the only time I actually used the Wii U was when I borrowed it from my brother to play Monster Hunter.
Mm-hmm. That was fun.
Yeah, it was something.
The battery life made it horrible, though. I mean, you pretty much had to sit next to an outlet to plug that thing in. Or get yourself a Pro controller.
Yep.
Which the Pro controller was good. Again, like the inverted sticks would have helped, but... Or altered sticks, not inverted, I guess.
So we still have our Wii U hooked up, and it's used mainly for our Netflix, YouTube, all of the video stuff. And I think that actually is one of its greatest features, is because it's like a really nice TV remote in that way. Yeah. If that's the only way that you're going to use it, for those type of services.
That's what we use it for, too. I actually use it as a web browser quite a bit if I don't want to fire up my laptop, because the web browser on it's decent. It'll actually play most embedded like web videos if you're on a site that's not linked to like a YouTube or something.
Yep.
And and just like you said, it's got the TV remote functionality, so you can change the input, you can change the channel, you can increase the volume, turn the TV off. It's handy.
Yep. So that's it's kind of funny because my Switch is not hooked up to the TV, but my Wii U is. So I play my Switch on handheld mode while the Wii U gets to stay plugged into the TV.
That seems fair.
I think the big strong suit that the Wii U has is the games. That's probably the only thing it really has going for it, right?
Yeah. I mean, the library of physically released games is the smallest of any Nintendo console. I think it's right around that 150 mark now, with maybe a couple more games possibly coming out for it. But the quality of first-party titles and then a couple not first-party games is just phenomenal on the Wii U, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, it's a really small library. If you are a collector and you're going for full sets, that's probably a pretty easy one. There's a few expensive ones, but overall, it's still not too bad. So if you want every Wii U game, there's some pretty good ones in there. There's some pretty bad ones in there.
Yeah, I mean, some of the strongest titles. I mean, we've got Splatoon launched on that. We've got a Smash Brothers entry, Super Mario Kart 8, which is arguably the best in the series. Super Mario 3D World. We've got remasters of my favorite Zelda game, probably Wind Waker. We got Pikmin 3, Bayonetta 2, Xenoblade Chronicles X. I mean, just so many stellar titles. I mean, there's like a core block of 15 to 20 games that you just shouldn't miss out on as a gamer to help you kind of justify the fact that even though there wasn't a huge library for the system, the ratio of stellar titles is phenomenal.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. There was there was also count them, two Barbie games that came out on this. The Barbie Miiverse for the first game is going to tell you that is the best one, but in fact it's not. The Puppy Rescue game is miles above the first game, and don't let anybody on the Barbie Miiverse tell you any different.
I just think I need to play both those games and decide for myself. It's the only fair way to do that. Okay, so as we were talking about this, I looked up top-selling Wii U games, and for whatever reason, a GIF came up in Google with the cover of Pikmin 3, but they renamed the game to Racism is Fine. Like, what the hell is that? I don't know if that's an official release, everybody, but might want to check it out if you own a Wii U.
Right, is like Pepe the Frog from those planets? I don't even know.
Yeah, that's the thing with the Wii U is I think, in talking about the marketing, we discussed how that was a flop. Nintendo didn't push it well. Their biggest problem was they lost all third-party support. And they slowly built up a great first-party lineup of games. I mean, we're talking, what did they have? Probably one major release a quarter, which didn't help the Wii U's case, but at least gave you like these awesome games to look forward to.
Yeah, yeah. When they first announced it, they said, "Oh, Xenoblade's coming, Bayonetta 2's coming," right. All these big games that were 2.5 years later. Yep.
But I can honestly look back in the last 5 years of gaming and say that some of my greatest gaming memories, like some of the highlights over the last 5 years, all trace back to the Wii U. And that's not, I don't think that's a lie by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, Bayonetta 2 is fantastic. Mario 3D World, I love. What might be one of my favorite games. I play it all the time with my kids now. We as a family play. It's excellent. And again, getting to revisit Wind Waker with a fresh coat of paint was awesome. And everybody seems to forget or overlook the fact that the Switch killer app, Legends of Zelda Breath of the Wild, I'm sorry, if you bought it for the Wii, you bought a Wii U port of a game. And it was made for the Wii U, and it's fantastic. And I've sunk probably close to 200 hours into that game at this point on my Wii U. And it's a fantastic, last, quality first-party title to come out for the system. And, enough to justify the system in itself if you weren't a Switch owner and you had a Wii U laying around, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. And they actually brought a lot of new quality titles, too, not just relying on their old stuff. I mean, you could say Mario Kart and Super Smash Bros. Probably the best one of the best they've ever been, as long, with Mario World too. Mm-hmm. But, you have Splatoon, which is kind of a Nintendo mainstay now.
Yep. And Hyrule Warriors, I thought was an interesting mashup, kind of in a great game in itself. Something Nintendo has not frequently done, lend out their characters, especially Zelda, to, other studios.
Yeah, for sure. And, Super Mario Maker, I had a ton of fun in that for a good solid month. After that, I was kind of burned out on it.
Yeah. I'm the same way, and I forget about it a lot. It's a great game.
It's great. I just don't know if, they can do that again. I think that's, one of the few games that might stay on the Wii U to be that's the only way you're going to be able to play that. I mean, they did make a 3DS version, but
well, the thing
I don't know if that really counts.
The thing that sucks with that is Mario Maker is all dependent on user-created levels, so eventually, in the very near future, I assume, they're going to pull online support, and that game is going to be almost worthless, in my opinion. Although I think what happened with that was when that game first came out, it was kind of interesting, you got to see these cool levels, and then it just turned Mario into something that wasn't Mario. I wanted to play Mario Maker so I could experience an endless variety of Super Mario levels, and it just became a completely different game, and that's where I dropped off. It's if I had to endure one more don't touch anything level, I was going to throw my Wii U gamepad through the TV. That's kind of where I was at with it.
Yep. Yeah, and definitely there was a lot of those, for sure.
Yeah.
I haven't played that game, but I've watched some videos where they gotta bounce a turtle off a wall, jump off that turtle, catch another one.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
There's some crazy hard ones in there too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, and back to Bayonetta 2, I think Bayonetta 2 is an absolute must-play game, and I hope it's a game that we see ported to other places, because it's a game that everyone should get a chance to play. It sucks that these games, I don't want them to die on the Wii U. It's nice to see with the Switch that Mario Kart 8 is getting ported over. We're seeing Pokken Tournament, although I don't know how much that was, in demand. But I'm hoping that, the legacy it leaves behind in the games library is that these move forward on other platforms. People who didn't buy the Wii U, which, let's face it, was virtually everybody. It sold, about 13 million units at the end of its run. Not a lot of people got to experience these great titles. So hopefully, if you didn't own a Wii U, you can at least get your hands on them in some form in the near future. And one last thing, in talking about the Wii U game library, I think the big selling point to the original Wii was the fact that it had this fantastic virtual console with TurboGrafx games, Master System, Neo Geo, just all sorts of stuff that just was not available online with the Wii U. And I think that really hurt as well.
Yeah, I would agree too. I mean, they just kind of put out the staples, the mainstays. And even a lot of them that they didn't miss, they didn't even put out. They didn't bother to.
Yeah. Yeah, what did they bring Game Boy Advance stuff in, about halfway through the life cycle? Which everyone was kind of excited about the possibility of that, and then they just really didn't bring that much over to begin with.
Yep.
So as far as, I guess your overall opinion, between the three of us and, the legacy that the Wii U is going to be leaving behind, I mean, what are your guys' thoughts? I know for me, like I said, I think the Wii U, there was nothing wrong with the hardware itself. It had a branding issue. I think it was just powerful enough of a console for Nintendo. You could look at that and say, this is exactly enough hardware spec for Nintendo to make beautiful games, something that they're very capable of. But it obviously wasn't powerful enough to bring over third-party interest. They couldn't port games across. But I think at the end of the day, for me, the Wii U, I'll still look back, and I still play it. I really like the system. I'm pretty fond of it. I think it's going to be one of those things that people remember and will be looking for in 10 years. What are your guys' thoughts?
I think overall the system is a pretty good system. For me, there's a handful of games that I really want to play. I just can't justify buying one at this point still, because they're still kind of spendy for how long they've been out, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and you wonder if that's ever going to change with how limited run was,
Now that they're basically done with it, it's probably just going to raise again in price anyways, so I probably won't ever own one. But like I said, there are a few games that I would like to play at some point if given the chance. So overall, I think the system is a good system. It's just the marketing was so bad when it was first announced and going into probably the first, year, I suppose, which is what turned me away from even thinking about buying one. How long is the support going to be there? You don't know, because they quit supporting the Wii fairly quickly, but I don't know.
Yeah, once Activision and EA pulled out, it was kind of like, this isn't going to get better, and that, like you said, was early on, after the first year.
Right. I mean, we only got one Madden out of that whole thing,
Yeah.
That's pretty telling. No, one FIFA, if they're not going to put another one on there, it's dead to them already,
Yep.
Yep.
I do think the Wii U kind of got its glory kind of shot in the heart with porting a lot of these over to the Switch now, which I think is kind of not fair to the Wii U, but in the grand scheme of things, it's probably better that there's more access to those games. If people have Switches, that they're able to play Mario Kart, and I have to imagine at some point they're going to put Smash Brothers out. I think that would be really stupid if they didn't, but
yeah, I think I would agree. That seems like almost like a given.
I just saw the other day there was a rumor that Bayonetta 1 and 2 are coming out for it. There's been Tokyo Mirage Sessions rumors as well. So I I think, probably half of the great games that are on the Wii U might end up coming to the Switch itself.
Yeah, and I think that kind of at least leaves a positive spin on that side of the console. That at least like the content that came out game wise was good. So it's cool to see it be ported and there be a demand for it. Because I mean, let's face it, even the best selling iterations of Nintendo's franchises in the Wii U were still the worst selling installments overall in those. Mario Kart 8, fastest selling Wii U game on release, worst selling Mario Kart game in the history of Nintendo, just because that install base wasn't there.
Right. And then, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch is selling like crazy just because of the install base. Yeah.
Well, I think in that first week it sold almost as much as it had sold altogether on the Wii U. It was just insane.
Wow. Yeah. I will say with the ports to 3DS, not so great. Super Mario Maker and the Yarn Yoshi one. I don't think those came out all that well.
But they added Poochie to the title. How could that not be better?
True. I guess that's a different game. Sorry.
Well, no, I think it is the same game. They just
I
don't know how that came into play, right? Because what did the Poochie element add? More Poochie?
Yeah, I don't know if you can play as him in that game or not.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you bring up, though. It's kind of strange that they were porting so many games directly over to the 3DS in a watered down version.
Right, but it had to have been a, oh man, we spent so much money on development of these games, we have to recover,
Yeah, we made all the assets. Let's just try and make a few bucks on this.
Yeah, because it's not going to happen on the Wii U.